Okay. There's two stories today, which I'm going to call a tie on the worst day of the ice rink that I ever had. So the first story was, okay, so precursor to all this is I was the lowest guy in the totem pole, worked my way up to be a manager at the ice rink. And so, at one point my job was to open the rink on the weekend. So Saturday and Sunday mornings, I would get there at 5 a.m., turn everything on, get everything going. People would start showing up around 5:30 for the first ice time, which was at 6 a.m. And sometimes they'd show up earlier than 5:30, and I always hated those people because they were always cheery and happy to be there, and I was, grumpy and tired. Are you watching me? Thank you. So anyway, I'm gonna block her out. Anyway, so one of the worst days I can think of, and so both of these worst days were on those shifts. So one day, the whole time I was managing the ice rink, I was also in college. So imagine being in college, never going out on Friday or Saturday night. I'm working 60 hours a week, plus going to school full time. So it just pent up. So once or twice a year, I would just get annihilatedly blackout drunk. And so one of these days, I didn't take the next day off work. And I think you can see where this is going. I showed up to work and I was still drunk because I was hanging out with a girl who I was somewhat interested in, and we drank a whole bottle of vodka just between the two of us. And stayed up all night drinking, and then I went to work the next day, and I was like, this is gonna be really bad. So, get there, and I was like, it'll be okay. I'm still a little drunk, but I don't have to drive to Zamboni for a couple hours. I'll sober up, I'll drink some coffee, everything will be fine. I get there, and there's a note on the counter from Matt, who became my roommate later, who I might have mentioned in earlier vlogs. Sorry, Zamboni died last night, didn't finish cleaning the NHL rink, because there was two rinks. There was an NHL-sized one and an Olympic-sized one. And the NHL rink was the rink that was first at 6 a.m., so I had to go drive the Zamboni. Now, he says it died because it's an electric Zamboni. You had to charge it. You charge it overnight. You could probably drive it 8 to 10 times. And because the batteries for it are very expensive, because, this is pre, Tesla, batteries for big things like that, or not. So imagine just, an array of car batteries, basically. So you had to do smart battery management, and you had to charge it in certain ways to make the batteries last as long as possible, because it was so expensive to replace them. You couldn't just go willy-nilly replacing them, So you had to be smart about how you charge it, and then sometimes you couldn't just charge it quick to do one last run. It was better to just charge it overnight and say, sorry, person who's opening, you gotta do it one extra clean. So I get there, I see the note, and I'm just like, oh no. And so I put it off to the very last minute. I was like, I can maybe sober up extra in that 30 minutes. I didn't sober up any. I probably got more drunk from just, I don't know. So here's where the big mistake comes in. There are different age groups of hockey, and one of the youngest is called the mites. It's the tiniest kids. And so these are kids who are 6 and under, okay? And they love watching the Zamboni. So they're there, they're eager to watch. They want to watch the Zamboni the whole time. And it's the first game of the season for them. So this is, for most of them, their first hockey game they ever played, right? And they're bright-eyed, they're bushy-tails. Their parents are here, their siblings are here, grandparents, aunts and uncles showing up at 6 a.m. And maybe it's just the fuzzy memory because I was hammered. But I swear to God, there was 200 people watching me drive a Zamboni drunk, including the children. So these little mite kids are on the boards watching, and they're so excited to see the big Zamboni come out. And here's me, just one eye, and totally just missing. Just like, you've seen a Zamboni run, it kind of makes lines in a circular pattern, right? And I'm off by I'm just swerving, missing huge chunks. And the coaches and the refs and all the parents, they know, this guy's just fucking hammered. And I'm just trying my best, hitting the wall a bunch of times. It was bad. So I get it. I finish. I managed to clean up all the missed spots. I went back over it. So I had to go back over and get the spots I missed, probably 4 extra laps, which is awful because I was a really good Zamboni driver. I almost never missed a spot. But I would never leave a spot either. I'd always go back for it. So I finish. I pull off and I raise the sled because that's what you have to do. The sled drags a blade. So you raise it up. Then you pull off the ice. And you dump the snow into the big snow pit. I get off the Zamboni and just puke. just let it all out right there. And the refs are just sitting at the door waiting for me to go hand them the nets, and they're just watching this dumb, fat 22-year-old idiot puking his guts out, and they know. They're like, rough night, huh, buddy? So I called the employee that had to be there next, and I was like, I am still drunk, you have to come in. And then I took a nap in the safe room. And then I was just hungover for the next 12 hours because I worked 13-hour shifts. It was pretty intense. So that was one of the worst days ever. The second worst day ever, this is the tie, so there's a college here, UNO, University of Nebraska at Omaha, and they have a hockey team called the Mavericks. Now, before the Mavericks had their own arena to play in, they would practice at our ice rink. And so, one year, we got the idea to pitch them the idea they should have a red versus white game, kind of like the Huskers do, which is a big deal where the Huskers play themselves, essentially. They raise some money, people come, they love it. And so we're like, well, okay, we could do that on a smaller scale. And remember those batteries that I told you were really expensive and really important to monitor? Well, they were on their last legs, and we were due to replace them. And this day was the last day to use those batteries. And they were well past when they should have been replaced. Because it was the very end of the season. Or right before the season was about to start, actually. I can take that back, yeah. So it's August or September. And so the stands are full. And then on the Olympic side, the bigger side, the stands could probably fit 500 people maybe. So they're full, just absolutely full. We'd sold tickets to this. And the plan was to do it like NCAA hockey, where you get the Zamboni in between periods. And it was right before the game was supposed to start. There was public skating. And for whatever reason, the ice was just awful. It was dirty because a lot of people had showed up. It might have been birthday parties or some reason. A lot of people had come to skate that day. So the ice just tore up. So I go out there pulling out the Zamboni, and it is it's blinking red at me. So it's hey man, I don't even know if you can get a whole clean done with this. You should charge this. And also the batteries, might not be going so hot. So I get out there, I get one lap, the outside, so you do an outside lap to clean off the edges, and then you do through the middle. Because of how the turning radius on the Zamboni is, it needs kind of a wider turn. So that's why it goes to the middle. And so I get one stripe down the middle and come across like this, and it gets about to the circles just before the blue line, and it dies. And not only does it die, it starts smoking, this black smoke. The batteries did not catch on fire, but something happened to the batteries. So I'm sitting there, just on the seat, and smoke is coming out of this thing as it just creeps to a stop. And I can't even get the sled off the ice, so the blade is just digging into the ice into the ice as things are dripping, causing this hole. And finally, like, it wouldn't turn back on. Smoke is coming out, and like the fire alarm's going off, and I'm just like, oh no. And I'm in charge, and I'm just like, so I call the boss, and I'm like, Zamboni's fucked. And he's like, what? I was like, it's on fire. I gotta go. And I hung up. And luckily he lived across the street, so he comes flying out, and he's just like panicked. And we have the hockey team come out, and the hockey team in their skates has to push the Zamboni off the ice so that they could come skate on the worst ice to do their game, and they're not getting cleans in between. So that was probably the second worst day. I'm not sure which was worse. They were both very bad days. So there you have it. Those are 2 ice rink stories for you of the worst days that I can remember. I'm sure there was other bad days at that place. There was one time where there's a juniors team, which juniors, so it would be like high school juniors, which is like not quite pro, it'd be like semi-pro, and then NCAA college level, and then would be I don't know what you call it, minor league hockey than pro hockey. So one time the juniors they were gonna do a similar thing, orange versus black. It was the Omaha Lancers, and they had spent a bunch of money to get a liquor license because the rink was in a park, so we couldn't have a liquor license because of that, and it was because it was technically on city property. But somehow they found a loophole that, like, if a restaurant sponsors it, they could have a beer garden. And so they did that, and it was a really big deal. And they have this big, like, tent set up. And in Nebraska, sometimes we get these, like, storms that come out of nowhere. Like, the weather can change in 15 minutes and be polar opposite. And then 20 minutes later, it's back to how it was. It's just weird like that. And it was springtime. And that's what happened, is the storm came, these black clouds came rolling in and blew this tent, like, up into the parking lot somewhere. And so this beer garden was just torched, and, like, no one drank any of the beer, but the rink had paid for it all. So, me and all the other employees, none of us were 21, got to take home all this free beer. So actually, in hindsight, that was a pretty good day, so, yeah. So there's a good story, there's a good ending for you on these ice rink stories. So anyway, that's all I got today. So I hope you're doing well, and if not, well, I hope that changes for you. So I'll see you tomorrow. Say goodbye to the art gremlin over there. Just pan the camera over slowly, because she doesn't want to be on camera. You're gonna There's the art gremlin. Everybody give her the finger.